I'll call the October 28th session of the Stafford County Planning Commission to order. I'd ask all to rise for the invocation, which will be led by Mr. Gibbons, and to remain standing for the Pledge of Allegiance, which will be led by Mr. English.
Lord, we seek your guidance in the business that is before us. In planning for the future, give us vision. In matters of finance, give us responsibility. And in dealing with people, give us love. Where there's weakness, give us strength. Where there's disagreement, give us tolerance. Where there's misunderstanding, give us patience. And where there is hurt, give us the courage to forgive and the grace to accept forgiveness. Amen.
Amen.
I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Mr. Cohen, will you please call the roll?
Yes, sir. Mr. Apicella. Ms. Bailey.
Here.
Mr. Boswell. Mr. English.
Here.
Mr. Gibbons.
Here.
Mr. Rhodes.
Here.
And myself, sir. We have a quorum.
Thank you very much. Are there any declarations of disqualification for any item on the agenda this evening?
Sir,
Yes, Mr. Gibbons.
on item number 1, I did get a phone call from the applicant.
Okay, very good. Again, and just to clarify, not necessarily a declaration of disqualification, we have developed a bit of a standard here just to make sure there's full transparency in other dialogues we've had. Anyone else? Yes, please.
Mr. Chairman, I also got a call from item 1 also.
Fairly understood. Okay.
Likewise, Mr. Chairman.
Yep. Very good. Everybody likes one.
Mr. Chairman, I received a phone call, but I was teaching, so I couldn't actually answer it.
I hate when that happens.
As well, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, good. A lot of people reaching out on this one. Okay, very good. But that's always good. All right, so no items for disqualification, just clarification. There have been some discussions and reaching out on the item number 1. With that, we'll move on to, I would just like to remind all that following the Planning Commission meeting tonight, we'll have a very short break, and then the subcommittee dealing with the comp plan will meet, led by Mr. Cohen and the members. So there will be a follow-on session after the formal Planning Commission meeting ends for that subcommittee. With that, we'll move on to public presentations. This is an opportunity for any member of the public to speak on any item except for a public hearing item. So if there is anything you would like to discuss, present, bring forward for consideration, other than item number 1 on the public hearing, because there will be an opportunity for public comment with that one. Now is the time to do so. You would come forward, state your name and your address. A green light would then come on. You'd have 3 minutes to speak. Yellow light would come on when you have 1 minute, and then a red light will come on, and we would ask that you conclude your comments. Is there anyone who would like to come forward for public presentations? Seeing no one race down the aisle, we will move on from public presentations. I would...
Mr. Chairman, could I ask for a
Please.
change in the order tonight?
Yes, Mr. Gibbons, what's the
After we
motion?
do 1, I would like to do 5 and 6 next before we go into unfinished business.
Okay, actually, the unfinished business are all going to be deferred to the 18th, so we'll be jumping on that. But I would like to do a so we'll be able to address that. But I would like to confirm: is there anyone here for item number 1 from the public for public comment? I know the applicant and so forth.
We have a family that's... We have a family...
A family here to speak on item number 1. Oh, I'm very sorry. Thank you very much. Item number 1 is a departure from the Design Standards Dominion Power Cranes Corner Substation. That's the public hearing? Okay, so we've got a couple here speaking of that. There were a couple that emailed Mr. Apicella that they are racing here because they really, really want to be here for that as well. What I would like to do is we've got a couple short items for 5 and 6, and I was going to take a motion to modify the agenda to do that if that's not too much trouble for you. I know you came here for it on time. Okay, I just want to make sure it wouldn't be problematic for you. Thank you very much. I don't think those will take long. So I would entertain a motion to modify the agenda to move to new business 5 and 6 and then go to public hearing item number 1.
Second.
Okay, I think I want to give that one to Mr. Gibbons. I think he was half a second ahead of you, Mr. Boswell, and second by Mr. Apicella. Further comment, Mr. Gibbons? Mr. Apicella?
No, sir.
Anyone else? All those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye. Aye. Anyone opposed? Very good. So we're going to modify the agenda. We got a couple items there on new business, and then we'll get, I don't think it'll be very long. I really don't. So we'll move on. Famous last words. Move on to item number 5, new business, SUB 14150283, Leland Station, section 6A, 6B, and 6D. Mr. Harvey?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Please recognize Leanne Ennis for the presentation.
My applicants are out in the hall. So
They
they'll be
didn't
here in a
expect
minute.
this. Okay,
Yeah, they didn't expect that.
sorry.
That's okay. Erica went to get them.
Seriously.
Here they come.
Mr. Chairman, members of the Planning Commission, item number 5 is a preliminary subdivision plan for Leland Station, Section 6A, 6B, and 6D. There we go. It's located on Assessor's Parcels 46, 49A, 92B, 93, and 93E. It's located on the north side of Primer House Road, west of Leland Road. It's approximately 34 acres, and it's zoned PD1 with proffers that have been amended. It consists of 110 single-family dwellings, and it's within the Falmouth Election District. This is the site. Located here. This is the commuter parking lot. I can't really see on this thing. It's glare. And this is the Conway Elementary School here. And these are single-family dwellings from Leland Station here.
Yep.
And this is the bridge that we talk about in the proffers.
Okay.
The development was rezoned in 1995 from M1 to PD1. The project was subject to proffers, Ordinance 9409, and revised in 9564 revised. Also in 2004, the proffers were again amended, and where pad sites were deleted, they modified the construction of the commercial sites based on the number of single-family dwellings. They modified the payments of the turn lanes and the bridge on Primer House Road. In 2013, the proffers were amended again to modify and relocate the ball fields, increase the cash proffers, and transfer the property for the VRE expansion, and eliminate the age-restricted housing. The age-restricted housing was located in this area here and this area here. This was the duplex areas, and this was the condos or apartments. The main access will be off Primer House Road for Section 6A and 6B, and also there's a separate entrance for Section 6D. This is 6D here, and this is 6A and B. It's approximately 8.79 acres in open space will be provided. It's, again, 110 lots and up 8,000 square feet minimum lot size is required. It's all served by public water and sewer. The original rezoning required a 50-foot buffer along the CXX and is still required. There's no RPA on the site, but there is some wetlands at the end of the cul-de-sac on Switchyard Court. It's on two lots. There'll be wetland delineations and permits required for that. That's located right here on these two lots here. Stormwater management will be achieved by a pond and maintained by the HOA. There was an administrative exception granted to allow 2 access points, one off of Wheeler Court in Section 60 and the other off the commercial area in Summer Comment Court. The one access point is right here, and the other one is going right here. Staff recommends approval of Leland Station Section 6A, 6B, and 6D preliminary subdivision plans. Are there any questions?
Questions for staff? Mr. Stafford.
Mr. Chairman, just to reconfirm, the previous proffer amendment reduced the number of units by about 50, and this is consistent with that.
There was 100, yes. There was, with the age-restricted units, it was 160-some units, and now there's 110.
Okay. I look closely at the the plan, I didn't see any issues and concerns, and so I assume from the staff perspective there are none.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Very good. Thank you. Applicant, please.
Mr. Chairman, Planning Commissioners, and staff. My name is Deborah Ray Carnes. I'm an attorney and land use planner with Lemming and Healy, and I'm here representing the applicant. What you have here is a preliminary plan that implements the proffer amendment in 2013, reduces the number of units, provides additional open space, provides additional VRE parking, and modifies the sports fields. It looks like an improvement to me. Staff supports it, and I'm here to answer any questions, but I ask for your approval tonight.
Thank you. Questions for the applicant? Mr. Appicello?
This may have nothing to do with this this plan, but I'm just curious. The lot that you can access off of Primer House Road, the second lot, I guess I would call it, that's
Okay.
graveled. What is going to happen with that?
I'm going to have the engineer, Bill Pyle, come down and address that for you.
Okay, thank you.
If you could, Bill?
He's trying to find out.
The reason I ask is because I take that station, and when it rains, you got ruts and the gravel kind of sinks down, and you've got big potholes, and it could
Then
be kind of.
it's reasonable for you to ask, and I'm sure we have an answer. And speaking will be Eric.
Good
Birch?
evening. My name is Eric Birch. I'm with K. Hovnanian Homes, the applicant in this case. The gravel parking lot, I presume, is the one that it's currently used as the overflow parking for the VRE. That is intended for future commercial development.
So at some point in time, we're going to lose
Point
that.
That will be, yes.
Do we have a time frame? That lot's pretty. The normal lot is pretty crowded. So plus it's an access point it's a secondary access point to the main lot, I guess I would call it.
Correct. And that parcel will be developed as commercial as required by the proffers. As part of the amended proffer as well, there was conveyance of a 3-acre separate parcel to the county, and that separate parcel was slated for potential VRE additional parking in the future.
Can you show me where that is?
Computer, please.
If I can point, and hopefully this draws. That 3-acre parcel is what was conveyed to the county with the intention of additional overflow VRE parking.
And how would someone access that?
That will be connected to the existing paved parking,
Okay, thank you.
probably somewhere within this area.
Appreciate it.
Absolutely.
Other questions for the applicant?
Real,
Yes, Mr. Cohen, please.
and I'm not certain, it's not really an engineering thing, but it just oddly came up this week that people were concerned about the traffic all the way down when it hits Route 1. And so, just so that I can ameliorate some people's concerns about the additional cars from this on, I think it's Morton that heads down to Route 1. Are there any plans that you are aware of or that staff is aware of about down at that intersection to either widen it or make it easier, because the backup has been going up to almost, I think, Ford Street or so lately. So again, it's not necessarily for you. It could be staff answers.
Mr. Cohen, I'm not aware of any current plans in the CIP to improve that specific road section.
Other questions for the applicant?
I just got a statement. I wanted to
Yes, please.
thank him. Years ago, you provided that overflow lot for us for VRE. As one member, I really appreciated that.
Very good.
Absolutely.
Okay. Thank you very much. Appreciate it. Let's back in with the Planning Commission, unless there's further dialogue for staff or otherwise.
Mr. Chairman, I recommend approval of SUB 141-50283, Leland Station, Sections 6A, 6B, and 6D preliminary subdivision plan.
Motion recommending approval of the preliminary subdivision plan by Mr. Apicella. Is there a second? Second by Mr. English. Further comment, Mr. Apicella?
Again, as was discussed, this is consistent with the proffer amendment that we approved back in 2013, and there are no issues or concerns from staff perspective.
Very good. Further comment, Mr. English? Any other member? All those in favor of the motion, which is to approve the preliminary subdivision plan for Leland Station, Section 6A, 6B, and 6D, SUB 141-50283, signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? Passes 7-0. Good luck. Thank you very much. We're going to move on now to item number 6, WAI 15150905, Sublake Subdivision. The two waivers of subdivision ordinance. Mr. Harvey.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Again, recognize Ms. Ennis for her presentation.
Mr. Chairman, Planning Commission members, item number 6 is a waiver for elongation and lot shape and side lot line for Hidden Lake subdivision. It's located on assessor's parcels 8-8A, 8A, 2B, and lots 2 through 4. The size of the parcel of 8A is 9.3 acres. Its zone is A1, and it lies within the Rock Hill election district. It's located on the south side of Hidden Lake Drive, west of Ryland Road. This is the 9-acre parcel. The applicants are proposing a consolidation of tax map 8A, which consists of approximately 9 acres with their properties along the Hidden Lake Drive within Hidden Lake subdivision. All of the existing lots within the Hidden Lake subdivision currently meet the 5-to-1 lot shape ratio and the side lot lines. Tax map 8A, 8-8A is currently landlocked with no direct access to a state-maintained road. Parcel 8A was created prior to the adoption of the subdivision ordinance in the 60s, consolidating Parcel 8A into lots 2, 3, and 4 will create the existing lots to not meet the lot shape ratio of 5-to-1 per the subdivision ordinance. It's exceeding the depth to the width ratio. Therefore, the request for a waiver is being sought by the applicant. Also, lots 2 and 3 are requesting a waiver of the side lot line rules, as the lines that they are creating with the division of Lot 8A and the consolidation to the existing lots in the Hidden Lake subdivision will create the lot lines to not meet our subdivision ordinance of side lot line rules. What it is these lots right here are in the Hidden Lake subdivision. They're all currently zoned A2. These are A1. The 9-acre piece here is all A1, which is a 3-acre minimum. A2 is a 1-acre minimum. So they're not conforming as it is. They don't meet the lot line, the size of the lots anymore that in our current zoning. They're just considered non-conforming lots. And what they're trying, the applicant had proposed that Mrs. Metzger couldn't, 2 of the applicants are here, but she had to work. So she wrote the letter on behalf of everybody, and she thought that they could consolidate the lot, leave the lots as they individual lots, but I talked to her, that's what her letter had said, and I called her and verbally talked to her about that she had to consolidate them, that we wouldn't allow her to create the lots individually, to have separate lots from hers, that she would have to consolidate them with theirs. So they'll be split zoned. All 3 of these lots will be split zoned. They can't further subdivide these properties because they don't meet the 3-acre minimum. You have to go with the most restrictive zoning, which is A1. So they would not be able to subdivide it anyways. So there's also, if we, there's no there's no way to access really out to the Hidden Lake subdivision. There's no access points to go this way or this way because they're already built-out subdivisions. This is the subdivision again. So there is an existing lot here. It's a family sub here, and then this is the lot over this way. So they did not have access to come in this way. So the developer is proposing to sell the lots to them. The homeowner, one of the homeowners informed me tonight that I didn't know, but this is up in here is the lake for Hidden Lake. The Hidden Lake subdivision, the homeowners for Hidden Lake informed me that this is RPA up in here, so they couldn't subdivide it anyway. They have a 100-foot buffer out this on both sides of the RPA, and he says it goes through about the middle of this area in here.
Okay.
The proposed waiver for section 22-143A shape in elongation and side lot lines, which is section 22-146 of the subdivision ordinance, is being sought. And if the planning commission is inclined to allow the waiver, staff recommends that it be done in accordance with section 22-241 of the subdivision ordinance. Any questions?
Questions for staff? Okay. No questions? Is there anything else to be presented?
There's two of the applicants here. If you had any questions to ask of them, they...
Okay. Does anybody have questions of the applicant? Would the applicant like to speak since you're here? You're more than welcome to, but you don't have to. Oh, got it. Okay, very good. Very fair. Okay. This is in Rock Hill District. Thoughts?
I move for WAI 1510905.
Motion to recommend approval of the there we go. Approval of the waiver, two waivers as identified, WAI 151500905, to include the recommendation that the second be implemented in accordance with section 22-241, as was recommended by staff. Okay, a motion by Mr. Gibbons. Is there a second? Second by Mr. Boswell. Further comment, Mr. Gibbons? Mr. Boswell? Anyone else? Hey, look, yep, this one is different than our normal standing of the shape and size, but it all makes sense. It's all good reason to use a landlocked piece of land, so it's all good. Okay, with that, we will take a vote. All those in favor of the motion to recommend approval of the waivers WAI 151500905 as were outlined in the staff report and to include being implemented consistent with section 22-241, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? None opposed? Passes 7-0. Good luck to you all. Thank you very much. With that, we are back on the normal course, and we appreciate the indulgence. Thanks. We just wanted to give an opportunity with the rain. We're back to public hearings. Item number 1, WAI 151500705, which is the departure from the design standards for the Dominion Power Crane Corner Substation. Mr. Harvey.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. For this presentation, Erica Ely will be speaking on behalf of staff.
Very good.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman and
Good
members
evening.
of the Planning Commission. There we go. Okay. Here we go. The applicant is Dominion Virginia Power, requesting relief from the buffering requirements in the landscape code on tax map parcel 46-19, which is within the Falmouth election district. The subject parcel is 3.893 acres and is located on the west side of Forbes Street, approximately 1,000 feet north of the intersection of Forbes Street and Lay Hill Road. The property is surrounded by residential uses, place of worship, and public facility. The site currently contains a Dominion Virginia Power substation, which was approved by the Board of Zoning Appeals as a special exception permit in 1983. A reclassification from the A1 Agricultural Zoning District to the R1 Suburban Residential Zoning District, and a conditional use permit for a substation in the R1 district were approved on April 21st, 2015 to allow for proposed expansion of the existing substation. The approved GDP depicts the existing conditions at that time and the proposed 1,800 square foot expansion area, which is highlighted in red. The purpose of the expansion is to install breaker equipment to ensure reliable and uninterrupted electrical power service from the facility. The proposed expansion of the facility required site compliance with the current zoning requirements. Section 28-82 of the County Code requires a 35-foot transitional buffer between a public facility, such as this substation, and residential uses. For this particular site, that is along the northern, western, and southern property lines. The applicant is requesting relief from the width, planting area, type, and number of plant units for the transitional buffers required on the northern and western property lines. Per section 143 sub B, the applicant must show hardship for the departure as well as any techniques being provided to accommodate the initial requirements. The hardship at the northern property line is created by a recorded access easement for the residential property to the west. The departure request is for the type of plant units and the location and width of the buffer, while the required number of plant units will be met. The applicant is proposing a buffer to be located just outside of the required 35-foot buffer area as depicted for illustration purposes by the red outline on the slide. And I did have, there is a landscaping key in the staff report. I can go over that again if you'd like me to now. Okay. The hardship at the western property line is created by the topography, which includes a steep bank with riprap identified by the gray polygon. Although the applicant is requesting a complete departure from the buffering requirements in this area, screening will be provided in accordance with the conditional use permit, which requires a double row of evergreen shrubs illustrated by the green oval. The applicant is not requesting a departure at the southern property line, where there is an existing vegetative buffer consisting of a mix of hardwoods. The applicant provided a tree survey reflecting that the required plant units are met. In addition, the conditional use permit does require that the buffer in this area is supplemented with evergreens in the area of deciduous trees as depicted on the approved GDP.
Is that circled red area, is that southern in orientation or is that northern?
Mr. Chairman, that is the southern border.
Why am I all turned around? Okay. Oh, this is looking from Forbes side?
It's looking from the east, yeah, from Forbes Street.
Yeah.
Oh,
okay.
sorry, yeah.
I'm sorry.
Should
I was thinking
label
from
the
Route 1.
street.
I got you. Okay.
Okay. So staff is recommending approval of the application as proposed pursuant to Planning Commission Resolution 15-11. Staff is recommending that all landscaping material related to this application be installed by May 1st, 2016, as reflected in the resolution.
Okay. Questions for staff before the applicant comes forward? Mr. Apicella?
Mr. Chairman, I got a few questions.
Please, go ahead.
For the northern property line, how far outside the 35-foot buffer will they be?
Mr. Chairman, Mr. Apicella, I don't know exactly how far outside they will be. Environmental planner, do you recall? Okay.
Not much.
Well, here on this slide, the dashed red line is the area depicting the required 35-foot buffer area. So the proposed plantings are to the south of that dashed line. So you can kind of get an idea that it's probably
So it's moving interior to the parcel.
towards the fence around the substation, away from the property line with the residential property.
Okay. Again, just for the sake of asking, because I typically ask this on waivers, is there any other location or configuration of the breaker equipment that would not require relief from the requirement? Could they do something alternative to what's being proposed and still stay within the requirements?
Would you like to answer that?
Mr. Apicella, one short answer is this is an existing site. It's existing conditions. So they would have to remove part of the substation, reconfigure somehow, which may be very costly and unreasonable for this type of application.
Understand. I just wanted to get it into the record that it's probably going to be pretty difficult to do it, especially when I look at the picture of the site itself.
Yep.
Were there any issues or concerns raised by any of the neighbors that you're aware of?
Yes. Mr. Chairman, Mr. Apicella, I am aware that the neighbors to the west were concerned regarding the upkeep of the easement on their property. There's a VEPCO easement. I think the concern with rutting, because the water does run off the site onto the property, but I believe that there are people here, residents here that can speak to their concerns.
To the west,
Let me go to that one.
where's
Ariel.
to the west? Isn't that across Route 1? Why
Whoops,
am I
sorry.
still turned around? Why can I not do this?
So, to the west is Route 1, and you can see
Right.
the parcel along Forbes Street. So, there is a single-family residence.
Gotcha. Oh, okay, that one
on that
there,
parcel
to
easement.
the southwest. Okay, yeah, all right. Okay, thank
So
you.
that's the only concern I'm aware
Understood,
of.
thank you.
So from the county's perspective, what do you think would be required in terms of maintenance of the easement area, if any?
I believe that internally, and the applicant probably can speak to it as well, as regarding their internal protocols for maintenance of their easements, but I believe once a year they do come out and maintain their easements, so it may not be as often as a homeowner would like, but I think that Dominion Power can probably speak to their protocols.
Okay, more broadly with regard to the buffer areas, who's responsible for maintaining that landscaping, and is there any kind of maintenance schedule that the county requires or guidelines?
Can you speak to that? In the landscape code, I believe we do have requirements.
Mr. Chairman and members, as far as I know, there are no maintenance requirements that the county currently requires for such a buffer yard. I did mention to the applicant during the process that because of overhanging wires, that there probably will have to be a maintenance plan to make sure that they maintain a healthy vegetation there, as well as weed out any voluntary species that may come in that would exceed the growth height limits that would be allowable because of overhanging wires.
So when you say there should be a maintenance plan, is that something they submit to the county, or is that something they just do on their own?
They did mention to me that they had a maintenance plan that they regularly and actively maintain, and I had left that to their discretion.
So when someone plants a group of trees, do they ensure that they actually? I'm not quite sure what the take hold.
Take hold. Yes, there is at least a 1 year warranty. Usually, there's a one year warranty and 1 year inspection done on, say, a planting of a subdivision or street trees or something of that nature, where the county will make a visit to determine whether there's any replacement needed, and then if so, the corresponding developer would be contacted to replace those trees.
Can I piggyback off of your question?
Please.
Sure. Well, okay, say 3 years from now, the whole line of trees or whatever vegetation dies. Do you guys go back and say that, or is it up to the applicant to make sure that's done?
My understanding of it is that as a county, we would probably find them.
Mr. Chairman, Mr. English, the county, after we've done a final inspection, as Mr. Fiorello said, we do a follow-up inspection to determine everything's thriving. If we get a complaint from a neighbor or anybody passing by that the vegetation has died, we'll do a follow-up inspection. If any material is no longer thriving, then we will notify the property owner about the problem. They'll be required to make a correction to the problem. If they don't, then we go through a normal violation process.
That's good, but let me ask you: does the neighbors around that know that question? I mean, do they know that if I live there, would I know to call you guys if the thing? I would think I would need to call.
And when you say you guys, let's be clear about who we're talking. Who would they call, Jeff?
I mean,
They would contact the planning and zoning department. We handle all zoning related matters. This is a function of the zoning ordinance, landscaping and buffering is.
Okay. So if the neighbors run across the problem, they'll call planning, and you guys would follow up on it?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Mr. Chairman, at what point does Mother Nature get into this equation?
What way you mean if it tore down trees or something else like that, it still would not be in compliance, and if you had a weather-related issue that knocked
Yes,
down all the trees, that makes them non-compliant.
that's correct, Mr.
And as long as planning and zoning would be made aware, then you could raise it with the landowner.
I don't think I would have that much concern with Virginia Power, because I think they would be more apt to take care of the property and all that, but I would just be worried if somebody else didn't do that. That's kind of the same for everybody as far as vegetation stuff.
Yes, Mr. English, we routinely have inspections for site plans or subdivision plans, as Mr. Fiorello mentioned, and if we get a complaint that the plant materials died, we go out and inspect, and if that's the case, we notify the property owner that they need to take corrective action.
Okay, very good.
So just one more question along that line of inquiry. For the areas that are currently buffered, where there are dead or dying trees, is there an expectation, if not a requirement, that they replace those now or as part of this effort?
In one area where there is dead or dying vegetation that appeared to have been sprayed along the northern slope immediately adjacent to the fence, that area had been treated. Those were trees, mainly sweet gums, that could get up to 80 feet tall, and because, again, the overhanging wires, those were appeared to have been treated with a herbicide. It was assumed that that would be removed in order to put in the plantings that they are proposing. On the western side, where I also noticed some apparent spraying with herbicides, I don't believe any removal will occur in that area.
Why is that?
It would just there's no plantings proposed for that western buffer because of the riprap, and the trees that did manage to grow there that were ultimately sprayed will just be allowed to deteriorate on their own.
Is that going to adversely impact a neighbor? I'd have to look back at them.
I don't believe so, because they're not that tall.
Okay. Just because I asked these questions for all waivers, I'm just going to ask this question. What would happen if the Planning Commission chose not to grant relief in this case?
Mr. Chairman, Mr. Apicello, the applicant will have the opportunity to appeal the Plan Commission's decision to the Board of Supervisors.
Okay, and last question from the staff perspective: is there a public good in approving this request, given that I guess the breakers are necessary to increase capacity for the neighborhood? Is that yes, no,
Yes.
maybe?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, Mr. Apatelli, yes, the improvements are required to increase the capacity of the location.
Thank you.
Yes, Mr. Cohen, please.
I'm going back to trees, because you said that because on the parcel already they sprayed some trees to sort of, I forget what nice verb you used, but kill them, herbicide them. And then when Mr. Apicello said, well, is it going to adversely affect a neighbor? And you said they're not tall enough, meaning that if they die, they won't fall on the neighbor's property. But if I'm a neighbor and they have dead trees next door to me, that would be adversely affecting me. So I just want to make sure I understand what you meant by adversely affecting the neighbor, as in falling on their property, or
That's
looking at bad dead trees.
Looking at or falling on the property is, any them receiving any physical damage as a result of a falling tree. They weren't tall enough to fall anywhere else but on the property they're currently on.
Okay, but they're still just dead.
Yeah, if they are in line of sight, they could be viewed as.
Then the second question would be, and this
Computer,
all came
please.
from you all. So they sprayed these two chunks of trees. I guess the sweet gums because they're getting too tall and they might cause trouble, and the other ones for whatever reason.
Same reason.
For the same reason. I guess my question would be a couple question would be, it's a two-parter. One, did they tell you? Or did we sort of find out when we were going into this application and you look? And two, was it part of the initial thing that they were supposed to have some type of buffer and they've sprayed to kill it and now technically they're not replanting? Does that, if, because then that would be a good faith thing that, they're saying now we're going to do this wonderful buffer and we're going to keep track of it and all this, but their existing one is just sprayed dead, and they're not going to do anything to fix it. And so it would make me think that, well, if they're not keeping up with the neighbors, with the Joneses on this side, then they're not going to do what they should be with the Smiths on that side.
Well, I believe Ms. Ely had mentioned that the station was developed in '83.
Before.
And that was quite some time before the design and constructions manual for the landscaping, which was 2005. So they may have not been held to any type of buffers or screening at that time. Other than that, I really don't have any idea whether it was a requirement at the time or not. And to answer your second question as to whether they divulged the information or not, not necessarily. No, they didn't. It was something that I, observed on site.
Thank
Okay. Other questions for staff?
I guess one last question, and it's probably more appropriate for the applicant. Is there someone from Dominion Power, it's a big company, that they can call if and when they have problems? Will they know who to call if and when they have problems before calling the county
We can,
with the landscaping issues?
Internally,
So
they do.
if one of the neighbors sees a bunch of dead vegetation, is there somebody from Dominion Power that they know they can call?
I'll let the applicant.
All right, thank you.
okay.
Thank you.
Applicant, please. Oh, is there more questions? Okay. Applicant, please.
Good evening.
Good evening.
Mr. Chairman, members of the commission. I'm Ann Neal Cosby, and I'm here on behalf of Dominion Virginia Power, which, as you know, is seeking a departure from the Stafford County Design and Construction Standards for landscaping. With me this evening is Nadia Yunus. She's an engineer with Dominion. Our forester could not make it. Some of these questions I've talked to her extensively about, and I hope to be able to answer the questions that you've raised. But I can follow up with her as well. So if I'm not able to answer those technical questions, I'm happy to do so. As you've heard, Dominion is seeking to reduce the width of the transitional buffer and some of the plant types, as staff has described, and I won't repeat that. I appreciate staff's efforts and meeting us on site, and they've been really great to work with. But as you've heard, this property does require, to the north and the west, this 35-foot transitional buffer. Mr. Apicella, I think in response to your question about on that northern side, what's left, the buffer's 35 feet. I believe the access easement that runs through it that was on that slide's 30 feet. So there's roughly 5 feet, although it's at the bottom of the slope that goes up to the substation itself. So for there, the departure, instead of trying to plant at the bottom in a very narrow area, what Dominion is proposing, and we've discussed this with the neighbors to the north, is instead at the top, actually where you could shield more of the substation, would be right along the fence line. There's a small gravel walkway, and beginning at that fence line, and this is on the landscaping plan, but that's a little difficult to follow, but there will be first a line of trees, 10-foot tall trees, and then right below that, moving down the slope, another line, a different variety of trees that are roughly 10 feet tall at their highest peak. And then moving down would be a different row of bushes that grow to about 3 feet and then go out wide to 5 feet. And then below that would be more of this ground cover, so that there's a variety, but it is shielding everything. And for the neighbors, hopefully to the north, as they look up, it would be more shielded than it would if you had trees planted right at the bottom. It wouldn't do, I think, what the ordinance intends. So we think that in this way, and then at the bottom of what would be installed as far as those, the smaller plants, there are some native plants that are already there within the bottom of the buffer. So it transitions into existing plants, which wouldn't be removed because they're also serving their purposes. So, so the accommodation then for the departure request is, putting the trees in this, the plantings in this different area. The highest, again, tree would be 10 feet tall, and that's really because, you've got those power lines there, and federal guidelines and Dominion's internal guidelines prohibit the company from putting anything that's going to grow more than 15 feet tall. So that's we think a nice way to have a good installation for that side and meet the safety requirements so that those trees don't grow up into those transformer power lines. To the west, as you've heard, there's the extensive, riprap that makes planting, on that western side impossible. There was some discussion originally whether there is that easement that runs west to Route 1, could they be planted in that yard? But as you'll hear, the neighbors use that as part of their yard. They maintain it beautifully, and I don't believe, and I've spoken to one of the neighbors that they, would want plantings there at all. So that was not, the better option. And in response to your question, is there some other thing that could be done? That might be an option to the western side, but it would be, in our view, a horrible option. And so what we have instead is, under the conditional use permit, there is already required, there will be 2 rows of I have this down. I want to tell you the right thing. Of plantings that will again be 10 feet tall, and so that would be able to screen that western portion of the substation. In addition, under the ordinance, part of the departure request includes approval of some credits that are permitted under the design code. You've seen the southern boundary has existing tree stands, and under that tree count, it's been determined that the number of trees would actually be available on the southern side to be afforded credit for the western side. I want to make sure. I think, Mr. Abicella, you also had a question, maybe a number of you did, about the trees that were there that were killed. And the reason for that is those trees, when they were originally planted many, many years ago, I think, as Ely had indicated, will grow quite tall, much taller than the guidelines would permit. And so Dominion over the years has just been shoring them off. And so I think that the guidelines have changed. And so the better practice is to kill the trees, remove the trees, and plant the appropriate trees in there so that there is not a chance that they would get too tall and would interfere, with the power lines. It's a safety issue that Dominion, just does not want to take that chance. So the trees have been killed, but the intent is, and the requirement is, that those 2 rows of the evergreens will be put in their place. So again, we hope you can appreciate these hardships. We've worked really hard, again, with staff. We've worked internally to try to determine everything that we could possibly do to get the most amount of plantings on that site. The northern side actually will have more plant units than are required under the transitional buffer requirements. They'll just be in a different location, which again we think is better, and will be of a shorter variety, but clearly for safety reasons. We have worked with the neighbors. We will continue to work with the neighbors, and I'll let them speak. But as far as making sure there's a contact at Dominion, that's not a problem. We'll do everything that we can in order to reach out to them.
Is it possible that right there in that area, that fenced area, whatever, that you could put some sort of informational thing. If they see an issue or problem, they can call Dominion Power or whatever, a number that they would get a person and not a electronic person, that they had to push 1, push 2 to get to, that they'll be able to talk to a live person that way. If
Nobody gets to talk to a live person.
That's why I'm asking to put this in there.
What I can do, I would be happy,
But what I'm asking,
Ms. Derry has my phone number, and I'm happy for her to call, but I would be also in, I can check on that sign, but at least for the 2 neighbors that are most affected, we can certainly give them, a direct number to
Right,
a
the only reason I'm
direct
saying-
person.
Yeah.
And we have, we can certainly do that.
the only reason I'm saying put that up because they may move 5 years from now, and that's up there that, hey, somebody will know that, that they need to call this person if there's an issue that they can call.
Yeah, I don't know why that would be any problem at all, so I can certainly, can check.
Thank you.
Other questions for the applicant? Mr. Appicello?
Back to the maintenance issue, staff indicated at least a desire that Dominion put together a maintenance plan. Is that something that's going to happen?
Well, I believe, and Ms. Eunice may know the answer to, there she is, to this. They certainly have an internal maintenance plan. I don't know if that is something that, for security reasons, the power company can share, but...
Really sharing the maintenance of plant? We're not talking about the maintenance of the facility. We're just talking about the maintenance of the landscaping.
I understand that, and it is, it's always interesting to me to find out exactly what actually is considered confidential for safety reasons for Dominion, but I can certainly look into that, and if it can be provided, then that's...
Well, even if the
certainly worth
plan
it,
itself
yeah.
can't be provided, maybe just a summary or a schedule, a proposed schedule that the neighbors would have some it's about managing expectations. So if the plan says, you're going to come out every 6 months and someone doesn't come out in that 6-month period, at least they'll know, hey, you were supposed to come out and you didn't. So there's some understanding of
I don't
what's-
think that would be a problem at all.
Okay.
Yes, I think we can get that to staff.
Any further comments or questions, for the applicant? Okay, thank you very much, ma'am.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. And thank you for your patience for the last minute audible on the scheduling, and certainly to the others who are speaking. So at this point, it's an opportunity for any member of the public to come speak on this item number 1. Which is the Dominion Power Cranes Corner Substation waiver. What you would do is just come forward, state your name, state your address. Once you do, a green light will come on. That green light indicates that 3 minutes are available. A yellow light will come on when there's 1 minute remaining. A red light will start blinking, and then we would ask that you work to wrap up or conclude comments. So would anyone like to come forward and speak at this time? Please.
Thank you. My name is Alice Deary. I'm at 640 Cambridge Street, the log home that is right next to the field. I want to say thank you to Dominion and all of you, because certainly when they started talking about landscaping, I was thrilled. That's wonderful. So they've been very good about engaging with us. But I think this has also opened up for us and my husband much needed dialogue, because we've tried to maintain that property there in that field in a manner that it looks nice. So we pay several hundreds of dollars, probably about $1,000, a year on keeping that field mowed. Our driveway, which is used by Virginia Power. So we talked about issues that we've had with the field. It gets awfully wet down there by Route 1, the rutting that goes on. This has actually been a great opportunity to engage in that. But you all have identified a couple of things. I like the idea about the maintenance plan. What are they required to do, the follow-up and communication? Because when you note the riffraff, well, that riffraff is technically kind of in our yard, in our field. So I went out there, and the next thing I knew, it was all dead. So I don't know, to be quite honest, there was not any formal planning. That was Mother Nature. But we do have kind of the dead riffraff. And, I've talked, and I think this, again, was a good opportunity for me to engage with Dominion to say, I think the guys come through the field because it's easy. It's right off of Route 1. They don't have to go around to the back and park, and they'll just park right there. So, we spent a lot of time and money to try to keep that field looking nice, and the drive. And so I think, what their responsibilities are, and I'm engaging in those conversations right now, but I think those are good conversations for you all, because it benefits the community at large, and we want it looking nice. I get it, I can't do anything about the big power lines, they are there, it is what it is, but to the extent that we can work out good arrangements as good neighbors and having it look nice, I think is important. So, and I would, this is good. I now know who to contact, but I do think that is helpful. And I think maybe having a better plan here in terms of who's responsible for what and where folks park and access and all of that is important, because we're paying for it out of our own pockets right now. So,
Okay. Thank you very much.
sure.
Is there anyone else who would like to come forward and speak at this time? Okay. Okay, I'll close the public comment portion of the public hearing, and rebut or any other comment by the applicant? So the comments are there.
I do not, other than to say that I appreciate Ms. Derry's willingness to come here, and I agree that, Dominion is happy to have a dialogue and work through these issues, and that's not a problem.
Great.
We'll do that.
Thank you very much. Okay, back to the Planning Commission. This is in the Falmouth District.
Mr. Chairman, based on the conversation and I think the willingness of the Dominion Power Company to work with the neighbors and vice versa, the neighbors to work with Dominion Power to resolve any issues going forward, I would recommend approval of WA, I think it's an I, 151-50705, departure from design standards, Dominion Power Cranes Corner Substation.
Motion recommended approval of the waiver. Is there a second? I'm going to give that one to Ms. Bailey. Okay, very good. So a motion by Mr. Apicella, seconded by Ms. Bailey, recommending approval of the waiver for the departure from design standards for Dominion Power. Any further comment, Mr. Apicella?
No further comment, Mr. Chairman.
Ms. Bailey? No further comment. Any other member?
Chairman?
Yes, please,
I
Mr.
just have a
Clark.
quick question, if I could.
Sure.
Because I just remember when at Massaponax High School, when accidentally a bunch of trees were cut down and then they were replaced, and they were little tiny itty bitty ones on the theory that eventually they'll grow up to be 10 feet. So is the normal practice to be something that's at least, doable, so that if nature or whatever were to knock down the tree, the replacements are normal size?
Are you asking the size at planting?
Yeah.
Do we know what the size is at planting?
Is
On
it
those
a normal
trees?
size or is it a itty bitty teeny weeny?
I don't believe it's the small, it's certainly not installed at full
Right,
height.
logical.
But I think it's at a reasonable, they're not all small. I mean, the idea, particularly on the north side, is that
Yeah.
it be tiered. So I think they will be installed at, a smaller but reasonable height. I can't tell you
No, and that's
whether it's half or a third, but
Right. Just that your normal practice isn't to go and get we'll get a baby one and eventually it'll grow up to be,
No, sir.
Human,
Grown-up.
okay. And then and this is sort of injustice, but are you open to the idea, since you're using that nice lady's field, that, she could charge you for the maintenance or at least a usage fee?
I wish I could say that we could do that. I think that Dominion, they do the landscaping that they do because they've got easements all over Virginia, and I think that the SCC would not like that expenditure, and I wish, because it looks very nice. So I wish they do.
I tried to help you.
Okay. With that, thank you. And I do appreciate that Ms. McClendon always accepts the fact that I don't know how to follow Robert's rules, but thank you very much. So with that, the motion is there. All those in favor of the motion, WAI 151-50705, to recommend approval of departure from design standards, signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? Pass 7-0. Good luck to everyone. Thank you very much for that. With that, we're going to move on to Planning Director's report. Mr. Harvey?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. At the last Board of Supervisors meeting on Tuesday of last week, they were quite busy. As you will see from your packet of information, the board referred a proposed zoning text amendment regarding outdoor uses in the M1 zone. I'd be happy to bring that back to a future Planning Commission meeting if you want to discuss it in advance of conducting the public hearing. The ordinance referral gives the ability for the commission to make modifications to the amendment as deemed necessary. We've had some dialogue from some individuals who may want to request a modification to what was sent forward. If it's the commission's desire, we'll place it as a new business item for discussion
Does that sound good? Bring it up as a new, have a discussion on it first, and then we'll work with public. Okay, yep. Can we fit, how's November 18 look? Because we only have 2 sessions left this year.
We have one public hearing scheduled for that meeting.
So we should have some.
Yes, sir.
Okay, good. Thank you.
Continuing on, the Board of Supervisors passed the Stafford Village Center applications. That's property on
I'm
Garrison.
sorry, all the names are blurring to me. Which one's Stafford Village Center?
That's the mixed-use development on Garrisonville
That's
Road.
that one. Okay, that's what I thought. Okay, that's what I thought. I just want to make sure I had it right. Okay.
They also passed the applications for Stafford Crossing Community Church, which would allow them to expand their facility. And they approved the applications associated with the Celebrate Virginia Apartments.
Oh, okay.
And Mr. Chairman, that concludes my report.
Okay, very good. Thank you very much, Mr. Harvey. County Attorney's report.
I have no report at this time, Mr. Chairman.
Very good. Committee reports.
Mr. Chairman, if you want, I'll just wait until we break, unless.
Very good. Got you. Chairman's report. I have nothing as well. We do have some minutes here to address. TRC. Everybody got what they need for TRC? Everybody good? So we got a couple George Washington, one Griffiths Widewater, and one Hartwood. Everybody's good, right? Okay. With that, I'd take a motion to recommend approval of the September 9th minutes. Motion by Mr. Gibbons, second by Mr. Cohen. Further comments, Mr. Gibbons or Mr. Cohen? All those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? None opposed.
Move for September 23rd.
Thank you very much, Mr. Gibbons. A motion for recommend approval of September 23rd minutes. Is there a second? Second by Mr. English. Further comments, Mr. Gibbons or Mr. English? All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? None opposed.
Move for October 14th, sir.
Very good. He's rolling. Okay. Motion recommending approval of the October 14 minutes by Mr. Gibbons. Is there a second? Second by Ms. Bailey. Further comments, Mr. Gibbons, Ms. Bailey? All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed?
I do. I had to abstain because I was there.
Okay, so 601. Got it. Okay, 601. Mr. English was not present for that one, so obviously won't vote on it. Thank you very much. With that, is there any item we've missed, folks? Okay, for your entertainment pleasure, in just one moment, we will be starting up the subcommittee meeting on the comp plan. We are adjourned with the plan commission meeting.